Gentleman from New York, Mr. Meek, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, good to see you again. I just want to make sure that, first, let me get an understanding with the talks in reference to interest rates. I know that at the last FOMC meeting, the President of the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City, Tom Hoenig, dissented in regards to the use of language about low rates for an extended period of time. And he basically made the argument that that does not give the Feds the flexibility, the flexibility that it would need in case the recovery happens at a quicker pace, and that people are starting to build in expectations into the marketplace because of the low interest rates. So I just, I'm just asking you, first of all, can you have the flexibility that you need, and then if the economy improves at a quicker rate, can you be flexible without shocking markets that are building in the expectations about the low interest rates?
Yes, we can. Mr. Honig's specific concern was the same one I talked to Mr. Royce about, which was about bubbles and asset imbalances. And as I say, we're looking at that issue. But I think it's very important to keep in mind that when we talk about an extended period, we're not saying a fixed period of time. We're saying a period of time which depends on how the economy evolves. And our statement very specifically says it depends on the level of resource utilization or unemployment. It depends on what inflation is doing, and it depends on inflation expectations. So if those things begin to move, then obviously that's going to be lead us to respond appropriately.
I tell you what my concerns are just in the housing market, for example, in that regard. What takes place or what is taking place in America in a lot of communities, a lot of people are underwater right now with their mortgages. And some are okay, they're making their payments if they have these the adjustable rates because the interest rates are low. And so they are concerned, so they're making it now. But if those interest rates suddenly jump up, then they're going to have a problem paying their mortgage. You know, that shock and where we go. Now, Bank of America has recently, I just want to ask this question, has said that they're going, as opposed to just reducing interest rates, they're going to reduce principals by as much as 30%. So I'd like to know what's your opinion on do you think that would have a significant impact on reducing foreclosures in the future? Because I'm concerned about foreclosures going up in the future. B, what is the Fed, if anything, is doing to encourage other banks to lower the principal as opposed to just reducing interest rates?
Well, I think one thing we're learning is that when it comes to addressing foreclosures, one size doesn't fit all. There are people with different types of problems. There are people who have a payment which they can't afford, and a lot of the programs we've seen so far, like the HAMP program, are about getting the payment down. Then you have people who are unemployed for a period. Maybe they can afford their house in a longer term, but for a period of time they don't have the income and they need temporary help. Then you have a lot of people around the country who are underwater, as you say, and the Federal Reserve has argued for several years that one strategy is to help people underwater, build up equity again so that they'll have an incentive to stay in the home and continue to make the payments. So I think that going forward, I think it's useful to have all these different strategies, because each different type applies to a different group of people. Now, I don't know that much about the Bank of America's specific approach. A lot depends on the details. But I'm glad to see that they are including this strategy. The industry was very reluctant to use principal reduction for a long time. And I'm glad to see that they're opening up now the idea of using that as one tool to addressing foreclosures. The Federal Reserve, as a bank regulator, we put out guidance in November of 2008, and we are certainly strongly urging banks to be responsible in restructuring their mortgages where necessary, and in particular in participating in the administration's, Congress's plans to help underwater borrowers.
Do you see, do you have the concerns that I have that we could have another foreclosure crisis, though, given the way that the the markets are and the interest rates right now, that especially those that are still in adjustable rates, especially those that are underwater, because they cannot refinance their mortgage to get a fixed rate, and thereby.
The gentleman's time has expired, so the chairman will perhaps answer that question
Well, later?
later or briefly.
Okay. We control a very short-term rate. There are many fewer adjustable rate mortgages out there now than there were a few years ago. Most people have fixed rate mortgages, and so they wouldn't be affected very much by our policy.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from